Noah, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
You bet. I have to tell you, your movie frustrating because it ends and I'm like, wait, there should be 5 more episodes. This should not just be a 90-minute movie. There's so much more. Really compelling the way you told the story. So congratulations on that. First question, are there going to be sequels?
Well, first of all, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. It means a lot coming from you. There is no plan for a sequel. We wanted the movie to be a provocation in the best sense of the word, a provocation to a larger conversation about this nuclear issue, which I'm so glad to be having with you right now.
Yeah. Was your primary source the Annie Jacobsen book, or was that just one of many? I mean, did you go to government sources? How did you get all this information?
We spoke to a wide variety of people who had worked in places like the White House, the CIA, Strategic Command. I had worked as a journalist previously, and so knew folks who had held these kinds of jobs. Catherine Bigelow, who's the director of the movie, had made Hurt Locker, Zero Dark 30. So she has extraordinary relationships in the national security world. And obviously, there's an incredible body of work that has been done over the past several decades by, think tank folks, authors, journalists, et cetera. It's surprising how much a lot of this information is in the public domain in terms of what procedures the government would follow in case of an attack like this. And then a lot of it, you can build by talking to sources, much like you would do if you were trying to report out a story or get to the bottom of something.
It's amazing to me that most presidents don't ever ask for training on this. They don't do dry runs. You're the one person that could change the whole world in 15 minutes. And you're coming into it. Most of them are just coming into it absolutely dead cold. If something would happen, they don't know how it works. And this is not I don't know how you would make the decision in that amount of time.
Yeah, two of the most terrifying things that we zeroed in on early was this question of sole authority and decision time, right? So the idea that in the United States, we live in a nuclear monarchy. The president of the United States has the sole authority to determine whether these weapons are used. It's not like he has to build any kind of consensus with the Joint Chiefs of Staff or take a vote of the cabinet. He has to decide, and he has to decide under extraordinary time pressure. So, if a missile is launched from the Pacific Theater, that part of the world, it's, under 30 minutes to impact on the continental United States. If a missile is launched off our coast by a Russian sub, for instance, it would take 10 to 12 minutes. So you do have a scenario in which one person has arguably the fate of all mankind in their hands, and they've got a clock ticking, and depending on where they are and what the target is, they're probably running for their life or being evacuated, worrying about their own family, and it's all put to them. What do you want to do? And if that's not scary enough, the cherry on top is we spoke to people who had worked directly with presidents, directly with secretaries of defense, and we said, how often is the president rehearsing this, practicing for it, preparing? And they said never, basically never.
Never.
They get one briefing when they take office where they're introduced to the military aide who we're all familiar with, the guy who follows them around with the suitcase, the nuclear football, if you will. The process is explained how that would work. And then after that, they never think about it again. And, Ronald Reagan, we were told, was the last president who participated in any kind of live nuclear decision-making exercise. And so the guy who has the most responsibility, all the authority, is also arguably the least practiced and prepared of anyone in this whole process.
It's terrifying. I've talked to President Trump about nuclear capability, and I will tell you, you can say whatever you want about Donald Trump, but the one thing I know he's afraid of is nuclear war. That has kept him awake night after night. He knows, like Reagan did and Gorbachev did, you start that, you push that button, it's over. It's all over.
Yeah.
There's, I mean, you hinted at it, when you were like, I got, if we fly these missiles over this country, what are they going to? Are they going to perceive this as a threat? Missiles. Russia. I think in the movie you've got Russia saying, "How do we know you're not going to bomb it? We should just trust you." I mean,
Right.
it's over.
Yeah, and all of which begs the question, I think, for President Trump and for all of our leaders, what do we do about it? How do we solve this problem? We've lived with this threat in the background of all our lives since the dawn of the nuclear age. I am, despite my last name, not related to Oppenheimer, but we've lived with
It's
this.
only got half the name.
We've lived with this dynamite in the walls for so many decades now, and really since the end of the Cold War, we haven't really talked or thought about it very much. It is obviously on President Trump's mind. He does talk about it. He's talked about trying to build the Golden Dome and a better missile defense system. And I think that, this question of how do we make the world safer, and it may be part of that is building a better missile defense system. It may be that part of it is re-engaging with an arms control and arms reduction
Yeah.
process, right? I mean, New START, our last remaining treaty with the Russians that governs the development and proliferation of these weapons, is set to expire at the end of the year. Maybe we should engage in a process with Russia, with China, to try to dramatically reduce the nuclear stockpile. There are
Yeah,
a lot of
I
levers
would
that
be for
the
that.
president can pull to try to make us all safer.
So, part of the controversy with your movie, which is House of Dynamite, and it's on Netflix. Part of the controversy, I guess, with the Pentagon is that the ground-based missile or interceptors, and
Yeah.
the interceptors, you say it's 60% success. I think Annie Jacobson says it's like close to zero, and the Pentagon says it's 100% every time. What do you think it
So
really
it's
is? Is it 60?
so there's a few factors involved here. The record of the testing record for this system, which is the ground-based mid-course interceptors, is public, and it is 61%. They have done a series of tests over the last 25 years, and if you add up the number of successes over the number of failures, it comes to 61%. The Pentagon in their memo is trying to say that the last several tests have been successful. The previous ones were not. So they say if you only count the most recent ones, it's 100%, which is of course preposterous. That's like saying I made my
Right.
last two. I made my last two free throws, and so I'm a
Right.
100% free throw shooter, even though I missed the previous
Exactly right.
four. Yeah. So now that being said, they're not wrong in that the system is getting better. The software is getting better. All of it is improving, but it is nowhere close to being able to say it's 100% effective. And part of that also comes down to the conditions under which these tests are undertaken, right? If I tell you, Glenn, I'm going to throw a baseball at your head, it's a lot easier for you to brace yourself and be
Yeah.
ready and catch that baseball. If an attack were to happen in the real world, it's far less likely, it's far more complicated to defend against. So, this though is not a debate between, us as filmmakers and the Pentagon. It's really a debate between the Pentagon and a much wider community of experts about the efficacy of this system. And, like I said, it's a good conversation to have. Do we want to improve the system? Do we want to try to
Yes,
pour
yes,
more money
yes, we
into
do.
building something like Golden Dome?
Yes. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. The one thing that you didn't hit on that was in Annie's book that I thought was fascinating was that when the president has to finally make the decision, he still doesn't know if it's nuclear tipped. There could be a conventional weapon on a ballistic missile that is being sent by North Korea, let's say. I mean, it would be an incredible waste, but if we launch before the missile hits, we don't even know if that's nuclear. And we would have then started a nuclear war because we're launching nuclear weapons. And they didn't.
I think that one of the things that we're trying to capture in the story that we tell, which is, of course, a fictional story, is the difficulty of making decisions in the fog of war. And that particularly when you have such a tight decision window, when that clock is winding down so rapidly, you're going to find yourself being forced to make calls with imperfect and incomplete information. And the other thing that is scary is that the system that we built that governs the use of nuclear weapons was designed during the Cold War for a specific purpose. It was to make sure that the Soviets believed they could never get away with a first strike, that if they launched missiles at us, the president would be able to fire back so quickly that our decision making, our command and control apparatus would be able to retaliate. And so maintaining that deterrent threat, we needed to make sure that the president could respond and retaliate as quickly and as easily as possible. So that's the world we still live in now. And so, again, if one domino falls, there aren't breaks, a lot of breaks built into this. The idea is to make it easy for the president to fire back. And so, yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, mistakes can be made. I think it's miraculous, frankly, that, we're all still here. That mistake hasn't been made.
It really is. Noah Oppenheim, we're talking about the show on Netflix called House of Dynamite. If you haven't seen it yet, it's a must watch. It is an absolute thrilling 90 minutes that'll scare the living daylights out of you because you'll be like, that can't be true, right? That's not the way this works. Nope, that's exactly the way it works. And we're talking about nuclear war. We'll come back for a little bit more here. I want to know, Noah, because I made a decision what I would do, but I think that is what would make me a really bad president, maybe. I would love to hear if you guys had a debate internally and decided what you would do if you were the president in that exact situation. There's one part of this I don't understand. And maybe this is what would make me a bad president, because I would say I am not striking until that thing hits and we know that it's hit and it's blown up one of our cities. And then I'm going to wait and I'm going to say immediately to the world, everyone in the world, you isolate and take action against this guy, or I will have no other response. I have no choice than to hit him back. But I would take the one hit in order to try to save the whole world. Why can't the president wait? Why is it this constant, you've got to launch before it hits? Why?
I don't think that would make you a bad president at all. I think that's a perfectly reasonable response to the situation. I think that the counterpoint would be the argument made by one of our characters, one of the generals in Stratcom, who says, if you don't, now that the genie is out of the bottle, right? Now that somebody has kind of broken this nuclear stalemate that's existed for the last, 70 years, that if we don't, it is now increasingly more likely that more weapons will be launched our way. We've now kind of entered into what they call a spiral of alerts, where because the one missile is coming towards us, we then raise our level of military readiness, start mobilizing forces. As soon as we start mobilizing our various forces around the world, everyone else does too. Now the nuclear genie is potentially out of the bottle. And do we want to wait and see if more missiles are sent our way? Or do we want to try to make sure that it stops with this one and take out the other, our enemies' arsenals and command and control systems before they can potentially launch more? I agree with you. It's perfectly reasonable to say, I'll take that chance that there are more coming, but I want to see what happens with this one first. Somebody else might say, don't take that chance. What are the odds it's only one? Let's hit everyone else's missiles while they're still in their silos and their bombers while they're still on the ground, and make sure that we limit our losses to just this one city. I think that,
once you do that, it's over anyway. Yeah.
Well, once you do that, kind of, yes. I mean, that's arguably the insanity of the nuclear deterrent, which is just that once you do, we destroy the entire world as a means of defending ourselves.
Noah, great job. I hope there's a sequel, because I would love to see what the president would choose. Noah Oppenheim, the show is House of Dynamite. Don't miss it. Movie on Netflix. House of Dynamite.